All right, so I'm going to do something here. How many people, raise your hand if you have been in a collaboration before? Yeah, that seems about right. Okay. Collaboration is part of our everyday. It's how we get things done. It's how we strengthen our individual weaknesses. And it's how we sort of navigate the solutions that we find in the world. But it's also something that sometimes is a little bit difficult. We were raised to play well with others, to share our toys, that if we follow the rules, it doesn't really matter if we win or lose, but we're going to get a participation ribbon anyway. So I work in collaboration every day. I facilitate groups to be in collaboration, and I really think that it's something that we can do more as many than we can as one. But I've seen a few too many collaborations go towards just sort of building consensus, working well with others, following the perceived leader, and following those rules that were sort of pre-set out. And often we don't even question them. So now seems as good a time as any to introduce you to Awkward Turtle. Some of you have met him before, some of you may have not, but we've all sort of been there in a conversation when someone says something and it just completely takes the conversation off track. And so what we need to do is bring out Awkward Turtle. So let's practice Awkward Turtle. I'm going to put this thing in my pocket. This is Awkward Turtle. Everyone do it with me. Yeah. So he's a little turtle. He's upside down. It's really awkward. But it's that shared moment that actually builds collaboration. It's what builds trust and respect for each other. And it's that simple goal that moves us towards action. But it can also be the expectations that cause rifts. So collaboration to me is three things: task, team, and self. So last year I was in a workshop on creative collaboration. We were set out to do a task: build a balloon tower. The tallest balloon tower you can imagine, with the supplies you have on the table, or the ones you can find in the room. And so away the teams went. They started stretching the balloons, blowing them up, tying them to the furniture, tying them to the ceiling, tossing them out the window, really trying to do anything that they could do to imagine, anything they could imagine to make this tower bigger. And so I was kind of observing and watching everyone go through the motions of trying to figure out how to do this task. And the blowing up of the balloons seemed like it wasn't really the best idea to me. And so I kind of ran around the room and I came back with a pair of scissors. And I said to my group, what if we cut the balloons? We don't blow them up, but instead we cut them and then tie them end to end. I thought this would eliminate some of the wasted real estate. And so we did this. After about 20 minutes, we emerged victorious. It was pretty exciting. And the facilitator said to us, okay, who in your group facilitated your group winning? On the count of 3, point to that person. 1, 2, 3. On the count of 3, a bunch of fingers were pointing at me. Now, what did I really do to facilitate us winning? I had asked for permission for us to take a risk, to divert from the masses of what everyone else was doing, and to do something I knew couldn't be undone. So we had been given 25 balloons, so asking for 2 of those balloons to sort of demonstrate that first action was actually a pretty precious commodity. And so my group said it was, what they sort of said was what initiated the success was that before I actually did it, I looked each person in the eye and asked if it would be okay. So, like I said, collaboration is 3 things: task, team, and self. So the task was actually fairly simple. Build a balloon tower. It's not rocket science. We all knew how to do it, how to approach the challenge. We had an end goal in mind. There was a non-negotiable timeline. It wasn't complex. So we didn't actually have to learn anything to actually execute on our plan. And so away we went. Team. It was a team of 6 people, and we'd met each other about 20 minutes prior to this activity starting. So there was no organizational structure, there was no power dynamics, so none of that sort of interfered with what we were trying to do. And it was the last day and the last workshop of a conference, so it would have been really easy to let our tiredness sort of distract us, or just a tiny bit of disengagement from the task completely alter the way we approached it. And instead we sort of took charge and persevered. And self. So there's a few of you in the room who've worked with me before, and I'm a generator. So generators are people who come up with ideas, but then those ideas keep coming. They don't stop coming, and they keep coming. It doesn't mean that I can't commit to doing an action. It just means that I really love the beginning of a project. I love getting that first sort of boost of energy when you sort of find that, like, oh, there's endless possibilities, and you can go on and on and on. So when I was first asked to do this talk, it was really exciting. And so I ran around with a bunch of ideas and was bouncing them off. And so after actually getting going and figuring out that, okay, research a little bit, find out what other TED Talks are like, figure out what the formulas are like, and then ultimately change your mind a couple more times until you come to an idea, and then you sort of have to just do it. You take charge, and as I'm standing here talking to you, I'm thinking about what my next talk would be. So I like to do things at the start. I'm a real starter. So when I started that balloon tower, it was easy for me to offer that idea, to say, hey, what if we cut the balloons? But I wasn't comfortable making the decision on how we actually acted. And so that was a bit of me entering that process and having to run around with it. So here's the really awkward part. What happens when organizational structures and power dynamics do come in? What happens when we actually need to think about how task, team, and self are working together, and what happens when they're in tension with each other? So here's what I'd like you to think about. Think about a collaboration. Think about how it started. Think about where you were headed. Thinking about the goals that you started out with. Were they the same when it ended? How did the team come together? Was it organic? Was it forced? How did you react to finding out that you were going to be in the collaboration? Were you excited? Were you stressed? So, like I said, I'm a generator. And so what that means is I come up with lots and lots of ideas. So I was recently in a group of super high-achieving people. And while our group was pretty well-rounded, they all kind of leaned towards action. And so as the concept was starting to take root in my head, and I was starting to bounce ideas around, I sort of needed those ideas to process what we were really doing. And so from that, I was sort of trying to figure things out, research, get my ideas in place. And by the time I had sort of like surfaced as like, okay, I get it, they had already moved on. And so I was mentally always having to catch up. This was pretty awkward. And while I was entirely proud of the work we were doing, and I felt like I was contributing, and I felt like we were beyond successful in what we were doing, it made me constantly feel nauseous, but constantly on my toes. So what do you bring to collaboration, and what do you take away? Ultimately, with every collaboration, we need to sort of think about where that collaboration is going. And I've been involved in a lot of collaborations, some really good and some really bad. But it's the bad ones that I let those moments of resentment, sort of that burning resentment, pass by. Or I let the moment where I should have sort of said something flow. I let the current sort of take me with it. And those are the ones that ultimately crumbled. And so we've all been there at the crossroads of trying to navigate how to make something work, how to facilitate our mutual success, and trying not to want to tie each other up and shoot each other with rubber bands. And so today, I'd like you to think about this. If you are able to embrace the vulnerability and question the norms of where things are going and provoke people to think a little bit differently and to take a risk, then ultimately we get to evolve both ourselves, our processes, and our collaborations. So today, I want you to sort of think about how you can be in the awkwardness of collaboration and how you can actually share those moments that ultimately build more collaboration and deeper connections. Thank you.